Next on Currents News, tough new rules are being put in place to block asylum seekers before they get to the U.S. border. The Trump administration is moving forward with the so-called third country policy to stop migrants en route to America. Police fire tear gas into crowds of protesters in Puerto Rico as they try to oust Puerto Rico's governor after derogatory comments were discovered online. And it's one small step for man, but Apollo 11's historic moonwalk continues to be celebrated for its bold and daring vision. This week we remember the world's most famous space mission on its 50th anniversary.
The Our Lady of Mount Carmel feast shuts down for a few hours as Catholics process through the streets to honor our Blessed Mother, and Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio leads them. I'm Tim Harfman, and I'll have the story coming up.
The ice raids were very successful.
President Trump claiming victory for ICE raids his administration began carrying out over the weekend. Good evening, I'm Tamara Lane. A new immigration crackdown also coming from the Trump administration. The third country policy making it harder for asylum seekers to cross the border into America. Currents News' Emily Druby spoke with Catholic Migration Services about the potential new threat to migrants.
Catholic Migration Services, this is Alex.
As the managing attorney for Catholic Migration Services immigration program, Alex Goncalves-Pana has been very busy this past week. She's receiving calls from undocumented immigrants throughout Brooklyn and Queens who are nervous for their future and their family's future. The Trump administration's latest move being called the third country rule, which will deny asylum to migrants who don't first apply for protections in a third country before requesting asylum at the United States southern border.
It's going to prevent many individuals who arguably have strong asylum claims from coming to the United States and seeking the relief that they are requesting.
This new rule comes at the same time President Trump is cracking down on illegal immigration.
Many were taken out on Sunday. You just didn't know about it.
Alex says as of Tuesday, she started to hear about some credible raids in the New York City area, specifically right here in the Diocese of Brooklyn Sunset Park. She says it's important those facing raids know their rights.
If we don't know about our rights, and this applies to everybody, we don't know how to enforce them. And the federal government and others can just do with us and our community members what they want. And we just can't, at this point in time, allow that to happen.
Catholic Migration Services is available to help teach people these rights. Foremost, the most important, the right to remain silent, the right to not open doors, the right to not sign anything, and the right as a witness to record and report the raid. But not everyone thinks that undocumented immigrants should even have these so-called privileges.
People came into our country illegally.
A large majority of Americans agree with the president.
What do you say to people who think that these undocumented immigrants don't have rights because they're here illegally?
Well, the Constitution says otherwise. And in fact, these rights do apply to everyone.
The Trump administration claims the raids are primarily focusing on deporting criminals, especially those with a violent background. However, the president acknowledged they will target anyone who entered the country illegally. Emily Druby, Currents News.
A little later on, we'll introduce you to some concerned Americans who are taking matters into their own hands as they try to help alleviate the growing problem at the border. Here in the Brooklyn Diocese, Catholic Migration Services is offering legal assistance to immigrants and more information on your rights. They have two offices, one located on 191 Geralman Street in Brooklyn Heights. The phone number is 718-236-3000. The other office is on 4701 Queens Boulevard in Sunnyside. The number for that location is 347-472-3500. They're also online at catholicmigration.org. The head of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is also responding to the Trump administration's latest attempt to limit asylum, releasing a strongly worded statement today saying enforcement actions like those anticipated this week by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency separate families, cause unacceptable suffering of thousands of children and their parents, and create widespread panic in our communities. I condemn such an approach which has created a climate of fear in our parishes and communities across the country. The Trump administration will begin enforcing Title X abortion restrictions. Last week, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals rejected petitions from opponents to block the regulation, which prohibits federal funding to go to any medical facility that provides abortions, as well as abortion counseling or referrals. The Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, hailed the ruling. Protests turned violent in Puerto Rico as thousands of demonstrators clashed with police in an attempt to oust the current governor over newly discovered misogynistic messages. Police sprayed tear gas into crowds gathered outside Governor Ricardo Rossello's residence. The protesters were there demanding he resign. Their outrage is over leaked documents allegedly written by the governor in which he used derogatory language towards women. The administration is also coming under fire for corruption, with 2 top officials arrested by the FBI last week. Bishops in Haiti are calling for a year of prayer. This as political tensions and instability have grown, with calls for the country's president to resign. The Haitian Bishops' Conference released a statement explaining the initiative, writing, "The misery has become so sharp and the insecurity so destabilizing that the tree of hope has been torn from the ground." Protests in the country began following an official audit that found billions of dollars missing from a government program intended to benefit low-income Haitians. Some of the biggest names in tech are facing scrutiny on Capitol Hill tonight. Lawmakers are considering steps to put their ever-expanding power into check. That includes executives from Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Google. Karen Kaifa has the latest from Washington.
Executives from the biggest names in tech and e-commerce grilled on Capitol Hill as lawmakers question their growing power and influence.
Facebook has 2 competing missions: make the world more open and connected, and make a lot of money. And as Facebook attempts to serve both these missions, they wreak havoc on the rest of us.
In focus at one hearing, Facebook's proposed cryptocurrency, Libra, the company promising to do their homework.
And let me be clear and unambiguous. Facebook will not offer the Libra digital currency until we have fully addressed regulators concerned and received appropriate approvals.
But after Facebook's past privacy missteps, some senators skeptical of the endeavor.
It's one after another, after another, after another. So I don't trust you guys.
And despite establishing Libra as a separate entity, there were questions about whether information about transactions could be shared with Facebook and monetized.
I can't think of any reason right now for us to do this.
At another hearing, the major questions surrounded antitrust issues, whether Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Apple are allowing consumers enough options or stifling the competition.
The internet has become increasingly concentrated, less open, and growingly hostile to innovation and entrepreneurship.
The topic of big tech has become an issue in the 2020 Democratic presidential primary race. Some, like Elizabeth Warren, calling for breakups, others calling for more regulation to rein them in. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, Currents News.
Pope Francis said his final farewell to an old friend who died over the weekend. Cardinal Paolo Sardi's funeral was celebrated in St. Peter's Basilica. The 84-year-old was one of the longest-serving officials as the Vatican's Secretariat of State. Pope Francis thanked him for his tireless and careful work during the past 3 papacies. Police in Rome are cracking down on skip-the-line tickets for the Vatican museums. Overcrowding has long been a problem, and officials hope to make a difference by prohibiting the ticket sales from third-party tour operators. Tour companies buy the online tickets from the Vatican en masse and then sell them to tourists at a substantial price increase. Here in Brooklyn, crowds are gathering in Williamsburg to celebrate the feast day of their mother, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. They're shutting down the streets of one of the city's most gentrified neighborhoods to celebrate the tradition that dates back over 100 years. Currents News' Tim Harfman is on the procession route. Tim?
Tamara, we're here on a float with a statue of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and you can see behind us the large crowd of people processing through these Williamsburg streets. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is in front of us leading worshipers in prayer, and this is all part of a day-long celebration honoring our Blessed Mother. The pews of the Williamsburg Brooklyn Church are packed on this Tuesday afternoon. Worshippers honor the Blessed Mother under the title of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, as Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio celebrates bilingual Mass in English and Italian.
Today is the day that those devoted to Our Lady of Mount Carmel are really very happy. It's our feast day. It's a day that they show their love and devotion to Our Lady in different ways.
That love and devotion is on full display throughout the parish's 11-day festival. But Catholics hold rosary beads and raise their hands in praise on this particular feast day. Outside the church, a long line at a shrine dedicated to Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Worshippers wait with great anticipation to pray in front of the statue, pinning their monetary offerings and lighting candles. What does the Blessed Mother mean to you personally?
Everything. She's the mother of all mothers. She's the mother of heaven and earth.
All the Italian people, we got a very, very strong devotion.
Franca Marcillo says her devotion brings mixed emotions.
Every year, my heart, full of joy, and I cry.
She's not only praying to the Blessed Mother, but remembering her grandmother, who instilled her love for Our Lady of Mount Carmel while growing up in Italy.
My grandma, very, very religious woman. Every morning she used to get up at 5:30, she got her first Mass. Every day she said the rosary, she teach me a lot of things.
Now Franca and her friends are teaching their families and praying that their dedication to Our Lady of Mount Carmel continues for generations.
For us, I think we were all born in the church. That's how we grew up. Wonderful. And we keep on going. We keep the tradition, the faith, and we try to transmit it to our kids.
And Masses are also celebrated today in Polish, Spanish, and Creole. So the devotion to Our Lady of Mount Carmel is not only for Italians, but for many throughout our Diocese of Immigrants. In Williamsburg, Brooklyn, Tim Harfman, Currents News. Tamara, back to you.
Tim, the feast ends this Sunday. What else is scheduled for the rest of the week?
Well, tomorrow night, men will lift the 7-story, 4-ton Giglio structure once again around 7:30 p.m. And there are also novena prayer services throughout the week, every night in the church at 7 p.m. And as you mentioned, Tamara, the feast ends on Sunday with another Giglio lift. Back to you.
Thanks, Tim. This week marks the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11's historic mission to the moon. It was 50 years ago today that the Saturn V rocket launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida and sent Apollo 11 into orbit. 4 days later, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin in the lunar module Eagle landed on the moon's surface at the Sea of Tranquility. And they uttered the famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." There's a lot more news headed your way. As the crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border continues to escalate, we will introduce you to some Americans who feel that not enough is being done to help curb the crisis. And one artist who lives near the border is documenting the migrant experience through moving photographs. His interview is next. Plus, it's the new seat of the Diocese of Orange in Southern California. The famed Crystal Cathedral is being rededicated. Details are coming up. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Nearly 75% of Americans call the situation at the southern border with Mexico a crisis. And while not everyone agrees on how to exactly address the issue, many believe that more needs to be done as soon as possible. Camila Bernal shows us people on both sides of the border are tired of waiting. They've taken matters into their own hands.
Standing at over 18 feet above ground, this half-mile steel barrier was built without the help from Congress and
we have to build a wall
without President Trump. With thousands pitching in, the organization We Built the Wall says it has raised millions of dollars to build its own stretch of border wall in New Mexico. And it all started with Brian Kolfage, a military veteran who was tired of what he calls inaction from Congress.
We were promised, border security, and that's something that I took. It was close to me. I wanted border security.
Just a few miles away in El Paso, Texas, Sylvia Barunda-Firth, an attorney, is also taking matters into her own hands. But she's taking a very different approach. She volunteers pro bono, assisting asylum seekers in the early stages of their immigration proceedings at Las Americas Immigrant Advocacy Center.
I was lucky enough to get a law degree, and I felt like it was time to give back, and if I could in any way to help in this crisis situation. The family separation stuff was really what made me feel like this is not America, and these people need help.
Firth says she first helped at a local shelter, but later decided that what she was doing wasn't enough.
And even though I didn't have any training in immigration law, I was looking for a way to try to help, to get in the system and help them.
Neither see their work as the ultimate solution.
This is just a band-aid to the problem. The problem is, the cartels across the border, and we're not doing what we need to do as a country to address that problem.
But both are tired of waiting.
Until we get border security, this is never going to be solved.
Eventually, we will have to have immigration reform.
In El Paso, Texas, I'm Camila Bernal reporting.
Tom Kiefer is an artist and photographer based in Ajo, Arizona, about 40 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border. He has spent years photographing deeply personal belongings taken from migrants as they try and cross into the United States. Many of them religious items symbolizing their hope and faith in a new beginning. His work has been seen all over the country. He joins us now to talk about his latest project, El Sueño Americano, the American Dream, an ongoing examination of the migrant experience at our southern border. Tom, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Nice to meet you, Tamara.
Nice to meet you, Tom. This exhibit is a referendum on the measure of a society. You focus your lens on the world's most vulnerable migrants. Tell us about the exhibit and how it came about.
Well, how it came about is for 11 years, starting in 2003, I worked mostly part-time as a janitor at a U.S. Customs Border Patrol facility about 10 miles south of Ajo. And it was about my fourth year working there in 2007, where I just became really disturbed by all the food, the canned food that the migrants were carrying with them while crossing the desert. That food was just being thrown away. And I asked and was given permission to retrieve the food out of the trash and bring it to our local food bank. And it was at that point, to my shock, that I saw Bibles, rosaries, family photographs.
We actually have some of those moving photographs from this exhibit that we'd like to highlight, starting with the religious imagery. So can we talk about first the Virgins of Guadalupe that you photographed?
Well, I found these statuettes in the trash, and I didn't find them all together. I found them individually over the years.
We also have the image of a cross that you took. Can you explain the importance of that and how it struck you?
Well, that particular cross, it's not it was hand done. It was a hand tooled cross. And so it was something that somebody made for themselves. And, it was considered potentially lethal or harmful or non-essential, and it was tossed. And yes.
Looking at that, you can see the work that went into it. But you even photographed Bibles, this image in particular with the verse John 3:16.
Right. That it's inside a prayer book, and someone wrote that inscription. And for the art that I created of that image, I provided the English translation on the top and bottom.
I can tell that this project became personal to you. What do you think it says about the migrant experience and the difficult journey they face?
Well, what they take with them means everything. They don't know if they're going to survive crossing the desert. This is, whether it's a diary, even a bottle of cologne, it represents their hopes and their dreams of, like the bottle of cologne. When I first came across a bottle of cologne, I thought, this is crazy. Why is someone taking up valuable space in their backpack to smell pretty? But then when I started thinking about it, it's like that bottle was probably going to be used for their first, get ready for their first job interview or be reunited with someone they haven't seen in years. And so that was very special to them.
And now, Tom, I can't help but ask about the background that you're sitting in front of. Can you tell me about that?
It is, I don't know, maybe 400 or 500 blankets, blankets that migrants carried with them. Because when you're crossing the desert, you need some type of shelter or something to lay on. And so these are just a small portion of the blankets that I came across in the trash and took out, and this wall of blankets.
All of them were taken from migrants trying to cross the border. Artist Tom Kiefer, good luck with the exhibit, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tamara.
El Sueño Americano, the American Dream, can be seen on the East Coast right now at the Fuller Craft Museum in Brockton, Massachusetts, and beginning in October at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. Still to come on Currents News, the famed Crystal Cathedral in Southern California is being rededicated and will now be called Christ Cathedral. We'll show you the beautiful renovations next. And she's celebrating a special birthday after asking God to help her get to a milestone century mark. Her prayers were answered and then some. And the tablet has a brand new page called Our Diocesan Family, where you can share your pictures of recent baptisms, Holy Communions, confirmations, marriage, all the joyous sacraments. For more details and to submit your photos, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. Your picture may be published in an upcoming issue of the newspaper. We'll be right back. Come tomorrow, a California building made of more than 10,000 panes of glass will be dedicated as Christ Cathedral, the new seat of the Diocese of Orange. The building, once home to the Reformed Church in America, was purchased by the diocese in 2012. Since that time, the structure and its campus have undergone a complete transformation to become a space fitting for Catholic worship. Those leading the makeover are anxious for the doors to open.
We actually began the construction on the renovation in June of 2017, and we have made great progress since then.
This particular cathedral on the West Coast will be as important to the Catholic Church as St. Patrick's Cathedral is on the East Coast. It will be a center for evangelization going forward, and so we're very pleased to be a part of it.
The Bishop of Orange, Kevin Vaughn, hopes that the beauty of the cathedral draws people closer to God.
Happy birthday!
Finally tonight, a California woman is celebrating a very special birthday. She's 105. That's how old Barbara Holman Robinson turned on Monday. And when she asked if she ever expected to live that long, this is what she had to say.
And I told the Lord, I just wanted to be 100, that's all. But I found myself after 100 going to 101, 102, and 103, 104, and now here I am, 105 years old.
She was also asked what her secret was to living a long life. She responded that it was serving God. Happy birthday, Barbara. That is Currents News. I'm Tamara Lane. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.